She returned to him for the 7th time. Padre Pio watched her enter the church, her face etched with pain, her eyes hollow. He didn't need to ask what had happened. He already knew. He had seen this story play out countless times before, but this time he saw something more, something that made him pause and gaze deeper into the woman's soul. What Padre Pio witnessed in that moment explains why so many find themselves trapped in soul-crushing relationships, why they always go back, why they can't seem to break free, and why this prison is far more perilous than they could ever imagine. In the next few minutes, you'll uncover what truly happens to your soul when you repeatedly return to a toxic relationship, what Padre Pio perceived in these situations, and what he taught those who yearned to finally be free. This isn't a message of judgment, it's a message of liberation, because countless individuals are imprisoned without even realizing it. And the first step to freedom is understanding the nature of your captivity. Padre Pio possessed an understanding of human relationships that few could grasp. He saw beyond superficial appearances. He saw the invisible cords binding souls. He saw the spiritual chains that imprison. And he also saw the pathways to liberation. A toxic relationship, he explained, isn't simply a difficult relationship. It isn't a relationship with normal challenges. It's something different. It's a relationship that systematically erodes your being, that diminishes your dignity, that distances you from God, that weakens your soul to the point where you can no longer recognize yourself. And the most dangerous aspect, Padre Pio would say, isn't the toxicity itself. It's the cycle of returning. Because each time you go back, something happens within your soul. Something that most people don't perceive. Something that makes the next escape even more difficult. The woman Padre Pio saw that morning, her name was Ashley. She had married young to a man who seemed perfect, well-mannered, hard-working, respected in the community. But behind closed doors, he was a different person, controlling, manipulative, at times even violent, consistently diminishing Ashley until she felt like nothing. Ashley had left 6 times already, each time vowing it would be the last, each time believing she had finally found the strength to start over, and each time returning, sometimes after weeks, sometimes after months, but always returning. When she came to speak with Padre Pio, she expected to be reprimanded. She expected him to say she was weak, that she lacked sufficient faith, that she simply needed to decide and stick to her decision. But Padre Pio said something completely different. "My child, you aren't weak. You are imprisoned, and the prison isn't the man. The prison resides within you." Ashley didn't understand. How could she be imprisoned if she was the one deciding to return? No one was forcing her. She was choosing. Padre Pio explained something that would forever change how she viewed her situation. "Each time you return to something that destroys you," he said, "you make a pact with self-destruction. You tell your soul that it doesn't deserve better. You teach your heart that suffering is normal. You create a neural pathway, a spiritual habit that makes each return easier and each escape more difficult. And there's more," Padre Pio continued. "Each return isn't just a decision, it's a surrender. You surrender a piece of yourself, a piece of your dignity, a piece of your ability to believe you deserve something different." Ashley began to weep. For the first time, someone had put into words what she felt but couldn't explain. That sensation that each time she returned, she left a piece of herself behind. That realization that she was becoming smaller, weaker, less herself. Padre Pio then revealed what he saw spiritually in these situations. When a person repeatedly returns to a relationship that destroys them, I see spiritual chains forming around their soul. These aren't physical chains. They are spiritual chains, bonds of emotional dependency that become increasingly difficult to sever. These chains, he explained, are fueled by several things: by the fear of being alone, by the fool's hope that the person will change, by the guilt that the manipulator instills in you, by the loss of your own identity, to the point where you no longer know who you are without that relationship. There's something even more serious, Padre Pio said with gravity. When you repeatedly return to what destroys you, you open dangerous spiritual doorways. You give permission to forces that want to keep you imprisoned. You weaken your resistance against evil. Ashley asked what he meant by forces that want to keep her imprisoned. Padre Pio responded with care. The adversary of our souls rejoices when he sees us trapped in cycles of destruction. He actively works to keep us in those cycles. He whispers lies. He will change this time. You can't live without him. No one else will want you. You deserve this suffering. These lies, Padre Pio said, are the bricks of the prison. Each time you believe them, the wall grows higher. Each time you act based on them, the door grows heavier. But there was a glimmer of hope in Padre Pio's message, because if the chains were spiritual, liberation could also be spiritual. He told Ashley about another woman who had come to him years before, a similar situation, a similar cycle. But this woman had managed to break free, and how she did it revealed the path for anyone trapped in a toxic relationship. This woman, said Padre Pio, did something different. She stopped fighting with only her own strength. She stopped believing that she just needed more determination, more willpower, more courage. She recognized that she was fighting something larger than herself, and she asked for help. The help she asked for wasn't just human, it was divine. She began to pray in a specific way. She didn't just ask to be able to leave. She asked to see the truth, to see clearly what was happening to her, to have her eyes open to the lies that were keeping her imprisoned. Padre Pio explained why this prayer was so powerful. Most people trapped in toxic relationships can't see clearly. The manipulation works because it distorts reality. It makes you believe that the abnormal is normal, that the unacceptable is acceptable, that you are the problem, not the relationship. When you ask God to open your eyes, he continued, something begins to change. You start to see the patterns that were previously invisible. You begin to recognize the lies that once seemed like truths. You begin to understand that you deserve something different. The woman he mentioned prayed this prayer every day for weeks, and slowly, something changed within her. It wasn't a dramatic overnight transformation. It was gradual, like a fog that slowly dissipates. She began to see behaviors that she had previously normalized, comments she had previously ignored, patterns she hadn't noticed before, and the more she saw, the more strength she found to change things. But Padre Pio warned Ashley about something important. Seeing the truth is only the first step. The second step is acting based on that truth. And this is where many people fail, because seeing is easier than doing. He explained that the woman who freed herself didn't do it alone. She sought support, people who could help her stay strong. When the temptation to return appeared, people who reminded her of who she really was. When the manipulator tried to distort her identity. And she did something else, Padre Pio said. She cut off all contact completely. She left no doors open. She didn't maintain any possibility of going back, because she knew that as long as there was even a crack, she would be tempted to go through it. Ashley asked if that wasn't cruel. After all, she still loved her husband, or at least she thought she loved him. Padre Pio looked at her with compassion, but also with firmness. What you call love might actually be dependence. It might be fear in disguise. It could be a habit of years, mistaken for affection. True love doesn't destroy, doesn't diminish, doesn't imprison. If what you feel keeps you in a place that destroys your soul, You need to question whether it's really love. This truth was hard to hear, but Ashley felt that it was necessary. Padre Pio continued, explaining what happens spiritually when someone finally breaks free from a soul-crushing relationship, when you truly break the cycle, not just physically, but spiritually. Something extraordinary happens. The spiritual chains start to loosen. The fog begins to dissipate. You begin to remember who you were before. You start to recover pieces of yourself that you thought you had lost forever. But he warned that this process is not immediate. Liberation is a path, not an event. You'll feel like going back. You'll feel nostalgic. You'll question whether you made the right choice. These feelings are normal. They're part of the healing process, but they aren't the truth. They are the last gasps of the spiritual chains that are loosening. Padre Pio then revealed something that Ashley had never considered. There's a deep spiritual reason why you entered this cycle, something in your soul that allowed this imprisonment. It might be an old wound, a belief about your own worth, a pattern you learned in childhood. Unless this root is treated, you run the risk of repeating the cycle with someone else. He told her about people who left one toxic relationship, only to enter another, who traded one manipulator for another, who changed the face, but kept the pattern. True liberation, Padre Pio said, isn't just leaving a relationship, it's healing the part of you that allowed you to stay. It's restoring your dignity. It's reconnecting with God in a way that you know, in the deepest part of your being, that you are loved, that you have value, that you deserve respect. Ashley asked how to do that, how to heal such deep wounds. Padre Pio gave her a practical path. First, confess, not the other person's sins, yours. The times you betrayed yourself, the times you ignored your own conscience, the times you allowed the unacceptable. Not to blame yourself, but to free yourself. Confession breaks spiritual chains. Second, forgive. Forgive the person who hurt you, not because they deserve it, not because what they did was acceptable, but because resentment is another spiritual chain that keeps you trapped. As long as you hate, you're still connected. Third, forgive yourself. This is perhaps the hardest part. Many people carry enormous guilt for having stayed, for having gone back, for having allowed it. That guilt needs to be released. You did the best you could with what you knew at the time. Now you know more. You can do differently. Fourth, rebuild your identity in God, not in what others say about you, not in what the manipulator made you believe, but in what God says about you. That you're a child of the Most High, that you were created with dignity, that you have a purpose that no relationship can destroy. Ashley heard these words like water in the desert. For the first time in years, she felt hope. Not the fool's hope that her husband would change, but the real hope that she could change. She could free herself. She could start over. Padre Pio finished that conversation with a prayer. He placed his hands on Ashley's head and asked God to break the spiritual chains, to open her eyes, to give her the strength not to go back. Ashley felt something in that moment, a lightness she hadn't felt in a long time, a clarity she had forgotten existed, a determination that came from a place deeper than her own will. She didn't go back to her husband, not this time, and not the next times he tried to bring her back. The temptations came, as Padre Pio had warned, the moments of doubt, the nights of loneliness. But she remembered his words, remembered the prayer, remembered who she really was. Years later, Ashley returned to thank Padre Pio. She was different, not just on the outside, but on the inside. She had a peace that didn't exist before, a dignity that had been restored, a life that, although it wasn't perfect, was hers, truly hers. Padre Pio smiled when he saw her. "You found freedom," he said, "but always remember where it came from, not from your own strength, from God. And now you have a mission to help other people who are where you were. Show them that it's possible to leave, that the spiritual chains can be broken. This story of Ashley illustrates what Padre Pio saw and taught about toxic relationships, but there was more that he revealed, aspects that few dared to mention, truths that need to be said, even when they are hard to hear. One of the most important things that Padre Pio taught was about the difference between true love and emotional dependence. Many people confuse the two. They think that what they feel is love, when in reality it's something else, and this confusion keeps them trapped. True love, Padre Pio explained, sets you free, elevates you, makes you become the best version of yourself, brings you closer to God, gives you peace, respects you as a person created in the image of the Creator. Emotional dependence, on the other hand, imprisons, diminishes, makes you lose yourself in another person to the point of not knowing who you are anymore, pulls you away from God because it puts another human being in the place that only He should occupy, takes away your peace, ignores your dignity. Padre Pio saw clearly when a person was loving and when they were just dependent, and he wasn't afraid to tell the truth, even when it was hard to hear. Once a man came to him desperate. His wife had left. He couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't function. He said he loved her so much that he couldn't live without her. Padre Pio listened patiently and then said something that shocked the man. What you describe isn't love, it's idolatry. You placed your wife in God's spot. You made her the source of your happiness, your identity, your purpose. And now that she's gone, you've discovered you built your life on sand. The man protested. Of course it was love. I'd have done anything for her. I would have given my life for her. Padre Pio shook his head. You confuse intensity with love. You confuse obsession with devotion. True love wants the best for the other person, even when that means letting them go. What you feel wants to possess, to control, to never let go. Those are very different things. This distinction is crucial for understanding soul-crushing relationships, because often what keeps people trapped isn't love. It's dependency, fear, habit, a merged identity. But because they feel it so intensely, they assume it must be love. Padre Pio taught that one way to know the difference was to observe the fruits. True love produces peace, joy, patience, kindness. Dependency produces anxiety, jealousy, control, despair. If what you feel steals your peace, he said, it isn't love. If it pulls you away from God, it isn't love. If it makes you smaller instead of bigger, it isn't love, no matter how intense the feeling is. There was another aspect that Padre Pio addressed frequently, the question of when a relationship should be saved and when it should be abandoned. Because not every difficult relationship is toxic. Not every conflict means you should walk away. He was very clear about this. A relationship with normal problems is worth working on. Disagreements, tough phases, growth that happens at different paces. These things are part of any human relationship and can be overcome with effort, communication, and grace. But a relationship where there is abuse, whether physical, emotional, or spiritual, is different. A relationship where one person systematically erodes the other isn't a relationship God wants you to maintain. He didn't create you to be destroyed. He didn't give you dignity for another human being to trample on. Padre Pio was very direct about this because he saw the consequences of people staying in destructive situations, believing it was their religious obligation to endure. God doesn't ask you to be a doormat, he once said to a woman who thought it was a sin to leave an abusive marriage. He asks you to carry crosses. Yes, but the cross isn't the abuse of another person. The cross is the suffering that comes from following Christ. Those are different things. This distinction was liberating for many people who thought they needed to remain in situations that were killing them, literally or figuratively, because that's what religion demanded. Padre Pio also talked about manipulators, about how they operate, about how to recognize them, because part of breaking free from a toxic relationship is understanding the nature of the person on the other side. The manipulator, he explained, rarely shows their true face at the beginning. They seduce you first, make you feel special, loved, unique. They create a version of themselves that seems perfect, and you fall for that version. Only later, gradually, does the mask begin to slip, but it happens so slowly that you barely notice. A critical comment here, a subtle control there, a put-down that you justify, an aggression that you rationalize. And when you finally realize what's happening, you're already trapped. You've already invested so much, you've already believed so much in the original version that you think that person still exists somewhere, waiting to come back. Padre Pio warned that this fool's hope that the person will go back to being who they were at the beginning is one of the biggest traps. The person you met at the beginning wasn't real, he said. It was a persona created to lure you in. What you see now is the true face, and people like that rarely change, not because they can't, but because they don't want to, because the behavior works for them. This truth is harsh, but necessary, because many people waste years, decades, waiting for a change that never comes, believing in promises that are never kept, giving one more chance, and one more, and one more. Padre Pio didn't deny the possibility of change. He believed in the power of grace to transform anyone, but he was also a realist. True change requires recognition of the problem, genuine remorse, and consistent work over time. If you don't see those three things, you're waiting for a miracle that the person doesn't even want. He told about a man who came to him asking him to pray for the conversion of his wife, who treated him badly. Padre Pio prayed. But he also said something to the man that he didn't want to hear. You can pray for her conversion. I'll pray too. But while you pray, you don't have to stay exposed to the abuse. You can pray from afar. You can love from afar. You can forgive from afar. Prayer doesn't require you to destroy yourself while you wait for God to act. This balance between hope and realism, between love and self-preservation, was characteristic of Padre Pio's advice. He was neither naively optimistic nor cynically pessimistic. He was a spiritual realist. Another theme he addressed was the guilt that victims of soul-crushing relationships carry, because the manipulator is skilled at transferring blame, at making the victim believe that they are the problem, that if they were better, the relationship would work, that the abuses are a consequence of their own failures. Padre Pio saw this inversion and denounced it clearly. You aren't responsible for the other person's sin, he said to countless people. You may not be perfect, you may have your flaws, but your flaws don't justify the abuse. Nothing justifies it. The person who hurts you chooses to hurt you, and that choice is theirs, not yours. This message was liberating for people who had spent years believing they deserved the treatment they received, who blamed themselves for every explosion from the other person, who desperately tried to be better to avoid the next aggression. Padre Pio also talked about the children in toxic relationships, because many people stay for the sake of the kids. They think it's better for the children to have both parents together, even if the relationship is destructive. He disagreed strongly with this. Children learn what love is by watching their parents, he said. If they see a toxic love, they'll think that's normal. They'll repeat the pattern. They'll become victims or abusers. Staying in a destructive relationship for the sake of the children can actually destroy them more than a separation. This perspective was revolutionary for a time when divorce was seen as always wrong. Padre Pio didn't advocate for frivolous divorce, but he recognized that in certain situations, separation was the lesser evil. It was protection. It was survival. He also addressed the role of the community in breaking free from toxic relationships. Because getting out of a relationship like that isn't something you do alone. It requires support. You need people who will remind you of the truth. When the manipulator is twisting your reality, seek out trustworthy people, Padre Pio advised. Not just anyone. People who know you, who want what's best for you, who won't judge you, who will support you even when you slip up. You're going to need them. He warned, however, to be careful about who you listen to, because some people, even with the best intentions, give advice that keeps you trapped. They tell you to forgive and go back, without understanding the dynamics of the abuse. They tell you to be more patient, more understanding, more submissive, not realizing that this advice feeds the cycle. The person who really helps you, Padre Pio said, is the one who sees you clearly, who recognizes what's happening, who supports your freedom, not your imprisonment, who reminds you of your dignity when you forget. There was also the aspect of prayer that Padre Pio emphasized. Not just any prayer, but specific prayers for liberation from soul-crushing ties. He recommended praying for discernment, to see clearly what's happening, to not be deceived by the manipulator's lies or your own rationalizations. He recommended praying for strength, because leaving requires courage that we often don't have alone. God's grace can supply what we lack. He recommended praying for protection, because leaving a toxic relationship can be dangerous. The manipulator might react, and divine protection is real and necessary. He recommended praying for healing, because even after leaving, the wounds remain, traumas that need to be addressed, patterns that need to be broken, an identity that needs to be rebuilt. And he recommended praying for the person who hurt you, not to go back to them, not to justify what they did, but to free yourself from the hatred that can keep you trapped in another way. Padre Pio knew the power of prayer because he himself practiced it intensely. He spent hours before the Blessed Sacrament. He celebrated Mass with a devotion that brought people to tears, and he saw the fruits of this life of prayer, conversions, healings, liberations, that could only be explained by divine intervention. He assured that whoever seeks God sincerely in these situations finds help, not always in the way expected, not always in the time desired, but always real, always sufficient. I want to tell you now about another case that Padre Pio followed. It was different from Ashley's story. It was the story of a man trapped in a toxic relationship with a woman. This man was named Michael. He was a good man, hard-working, devout. He had married a woman who seemed ideal. But over time, she revealed herself to be manipulative, controlling, emotionally abusive. Michael suffered in silence, because in the culture of the time, men weren't seen as victims. There was no vocabulary for what he experienced. When he tried to talk, people laughed or downplayed it. "You're the man," they said. "You're in control." But Michael wasn't in control. He was trapped. His wife manipulated through emotional blackmail, threatened to hurt herself if he crossed her, used the children as weapons, distorted situations to make him look like the villain before the family and the community. When he came to Padre Pio, he was destroyed, not physically, but emotionally, spiritually. He no longer knew what was real. He no longer trusted his own judgment. He thought he was going crazy. Padre Pio listened to him with the same compassion that he listened to the women in similar situations. "You're not crazy," he said. "You're being manipulated. What you describe has a name. It's abuse. And abuse knows no gender. Men can also be victims, and victims can also be freed." Michael wept. It was the first time someone had validated his experience. The first time someone had said it wasn't his fault. The first time someone had offered hope. Padre Pio gave him the same advice he gave to the women. Seek clarity, seek support, establish boundaries, and if necessary, leave. But he also recognized the specific difficulties that Michael faced. The shame that men feel, admitting they are victims, the lack of resources aimed at them, the fear of losing access to their children. Each path to freedom is unique, Padre Pio said. Yours will be different from a woman's, but freedom is possible, and God wants it for you as much as He wants it for anyone. Michael found his way. It was longer, more complicated, more lonely than he would have liked, but he found it. And years later, he also returned to thank Padre Pio. He too was transformed. He too had found the peace he thought impossible. These stories of Ashley and Michael represent thousands of others that Padre Pio accompanied throughout his life. People trapped in cycles of destruction. People who repeatedly returned to what hurt them. People who thought there was no way out. And for all of them, the message was the same. There is a way out. God wants your freedom. The spiritual chains can be broken. Healing is possible. But there was something more that Padre Pio revealed about this theme, something that went beyond the individual cases, something that explained why so many people in modern society are trapped in soul-crushing relationships. He saw this as a sign of the times, a consequence of a culture that has lost the sense of the sacred in human relationships, that has treated love as entertainment, that has separated sex from commitment, that has valued fleeting feelings above lasting fidelity. When people don't understand what love really is, he once said, they accept cheap imitations. They settle for anything that looks like love, even when it destroys them, because they don't know anything better, because they've never seen the real thing. This analysis wasn't to judge, but to explain, to show that toxic relationships aren't just individual problems. They are also symptoms of a cultural disease, a disease that Padre Pio saw spreading and that worried him deeply. The solution, he believed, began with the restoration of the correct understanding of love. Love as the saints taught it. Love as Christ demonstrated it. Love that is patient, that is kind, that does not seek its own interests, that bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. This love isn't what modern culture sells. It's not the passion of the movies that burns intensely and then dies. It's not the romance of the soap operas, where obstacles are romanticized instead of resolved. It's something deeper, more lasting, more transformative. Padre Pio taught that whoever knows this true love hardly settles for its counterfeits. It's like someone who has tasted genuine wine and then tries to drink vinegar. The developed palate rejects what is inferior. He encouraged people to cultivate this knowledge, to study the saints who loved well, to meditate on Christ's love for the Church, to build their idea of love not from culture, but from faith. When you know what true love is, Padre Pio said, you can recognize the false, you can identify the relationships that nurture and the ones that destroy. You can make better choices because you have a better standard to compare against. This formation, he believed, should start early. Parents should teach their children what true love is, not just with words, but with example. A family where parents love each other with respect, kindness, and fidelity teaches more about relationships than 1,000 books ever could. On the other hand, a family where there is toxicity teaches destructive patterns. Children who grow up seeing abuse normalize abuse. They think that's how relationships work, and they repeat the cycle when they are adults. Padre Pio saw this generational pattern. He saw families where toxicity passed from parents to children, from grandparents to grandchildren. He saw spiritual chains that stretched across generations. But he also saw that these chains could be broken. A person who recognizes the pattern and decides to do things differently can change the history of their family. They can be the first generation to know true love and can pass that knowledge on to their children. You can be the one who breaks the curse, he told a woman who came from a long line of abusive marriages. You can be the first to live differently, and if you do, your children and grandchildren will reap the rewards. This perspective gave both hope and responsibility. Hope, because it showed that the past does not determine the future. Responsibility, because it showed that our choices affect generations to come. Padre Pio also spoke about the role of the Church in helping people trapped in soul-crushing relationships. He believed that the community of faith should be a place of refuge, a place where victims find support, not judgment, a place where the truth is spoken with love, a place where freedom is celebrated. He was saddened when he saw the Church being used to keep people in abusive situations, when verses about submission were used to justify domination, when the sacrament of marriage was invoked to prevent people from protecting themselves. The gospel liberates, he said firmly. If the way we interpret it is trapping people in destruction, the interpretation is wrong, not the gospel. Christ came to give abundant life, not for people to die slowly in relationships that are killing them. This position was courageous for his time. But Padre Pio was never afraid to speak the truth, even when it was unpopular. His concern was with souls, not with opinions. He saw each person trapped in a toxic relationship as someone Christ loved, someone for whom he died, someone who deserved freedom, dignity, peace, and he did everything in his power to help them find those things. If you are watching this video and recognize yourself in the stories I've told, know that Padre Pio intercedes for you now. From heaven, he continues the work he did on earth. He continues to pray for those who are trapped. He continues to obtain graces for those who seek freedom. As for his intercession, say, Padre Pio, you who saw the chains that bound soul, see mine. You who helped the imprisoned to free themselves, help me. You who knew the difference between true love and its counterfeit, teach me to recognize it. This prayer, made with sincerity, will not go unanswered, because Padre Pio remains active, remains present, remains working for the salvation and liberation of souls. And if you know someone trapped in a toxic relationship, share this video. Sometimes the person cannot see it alone. Sometimes they need someone to show them that there is another perspective, that there is a way out, that there is hope. You can be that someone. You can be the person who plants the seed of liberation. You can be the instrument that God uses to reach the one you love. Before closing, I want to leave some final words that Padre Pio would say to you if he were here. If you are trapped, know that imprisonment is not forever. The strongest chains can be broken by the grace of God. The oldest cycle can be interrupted. The deepest wound can be healed. If you are thinking of going back, stop. Remember what made you leave. Remember the pain. Remember the unfulfilled promises. And ask yourself, what is different this time? If nothing is different, the result will not be either. If you manage to get out, protect your freedom. Don't let loneliness push you back. Don't let guilt paralyze you. Don't let fool's hope deceive you. You fought hard to get here. Don't waste that victory. If you are healing, be patient with yourself. Healing takes time. There will be good days and bad days. There will be moments of strength and moments of weakness. All of this is normal. Keep going forward, one day at a time. And if you are free and healed, help others. Your story of liberation can be the light that guides someone in the darkness. Your experience can be the hope that someone desperate needs. Don't waste what you've learned. Use it for the good of others. This channel exists to bring spiritual revelations that transform lives. Each video we produce about Padre Pio requires in-depth research into his works, the testimonies of those who knew him, and the tradition of the Church. The Super Thanks button that appears right below this video is a way for you to join this mission. It's not just financial support. It's you saying that these truths about liberation and healing need to continue being proclaimed. It's you becoming part of a community that seeks to live according to the gospel. Padre Pio used to say that those who help spread the divine truth receive special blessings. When you click on that golden heart, you are not just supporting a channel. You are participating in the work of evangelization. You are helping other souls who may be trapped as you were or still are. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been trapped in a soul-crushing relationship? Have you managed to break free? What helped you? Or are you still struggling and in need of prayer? Write in the comments. Your story can help others, and know that each comment is read and that prayers are offered for those who ask. May Padre Pio, from heaven, where he now intercedes for us, break the chains that bind you. May he give you eyes to see the truth. May he give you the strength to act. May he give you the courage not to go back. And may Our Lady, whom Padre Pio loves so deeply, protect you with her mantle. May she guide you to relationships that uplift you instead of destroying you. May she show you the true love of which every healthy relationship should be a reflection. You were created for freedom, not for imprisonment. You were created for love, not for destruction. You were created for peace, not for torment. Reclaim what is yours by right of creation. The freedom that God wants for you, the dignity that no one should ever have taken from you, the peace that comes from healthy relationships, a peace you deserve. And remember this, every time you return to what erodes your being, you're telling your soul that it doesn't deserve better. But every time you choose freedom, you're affirming that you do deserve better. And in the eyes of God, you absolutely deserve it. Padre Pio lived his entire life helping souls find liberation. On September 23, 1968, he himself was released from the prison of his body and entered the eternal freedom of heaven. But his work continues, his intercession continues, his love for souls continues, even now. He sees you now. He sees your struggles. He sees the spiritual chains that bind you, and he's interceding for you at this very moment, asking God to give you the grace you need, the grace to see clearly, to act decisively, to persevere relentlessly, to overcome completely. Accept that grace. Open your heart wide. Let those chains fall away. And then, one day, you too will be someone who helps others break free, because those who have been liberated know the way, and those who know the way can guide others. So may it be for you, today, tomorrow, forever. Amen.